Donald Trump's top officials were cross-examined one after another in the United States Senate, and each one collapsed worse than the one before. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick got grilled. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent got grilled. Energy Secretary Chris Wright got grilled. And Health Secretary RFK Jr. That was a total disaster. Let me show you what went down. First, watch Democratic Senator Van Hollen cross-examine a very arrogant Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and bring him back down to earth. During this exchange, Bessent admits under oath that he was unaware of what turns out to be a pretty significant fact. Play this clip.
Mr. Secretary, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your recent conversations with folks in the government of the UAE. As I'm sure you probably know, President Trump and his family have done a very brisk business with the UAE over the last few years. There was the $500 million that Sheikh Tahnoon, the UAE's national security advisor and brother of the president, invested in World Liberty Financial, which is the Trump family crypto venture, right before the president's inauguration. There was the $2 billion in World Liberty's stablecoin that Sheikh Tahnoon used to invest in Binance, a deal that effectively handed World Liberty $2 billion in cash at the same time that the United States government relaxed our export controls on high-end AI and chips to UAE companies. And now I understand that the UAE is looking for a swap line. The war in Iran has already cost us dearly. In my view, it's been a huge mistake, made us less safe and a lot worse off. In addition to lives lost, we're talking about over $1 billion a day in taxpayer money. We're talking about higher gas prices, higher prices overall. And now we understand that the UAE is asking you to provide them a swap line through the Exchange Stabilization Fund. Mr. Secretary, can you talk about this request and whether or not you expect to support it?
Senator, I would dispute much of what you earlier said and any linkages to this swap line. Many of our Gulf allies have requested swap lines. You would have just read about the UAE, and swap lines, whether it's from the Federal Reserve or the Treasury, are to maintain order in the dollar funding markets and to prevent the sale of the U.S. assets in a disorderly way. So the swap line would both benefit the UAE and the U.S. And as I said, numerous other countries, including some of our Asian allies, have also requested them.
Mr. Secretary, you said you disputed some of the facts that I presented. Do you dispute the fact that Sheikh Tahnoon, through his company, invested $500 million in World Liberty Financial just before the president was inaugurated? You contest that.
I'm unaware of that.
You're not aware of that?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
I dispute your linkages.
Are you aware of the other transaction I mentioned? Essentially, the $2 billion. Seriously?
I'm not.
I mean, it's been so widely reported, Mr. Secretary, and been the subject of lots of questions. In fact, I believe I've asked you about this in the past.
Then Senator Van Hollen cross-examines Howard Lutnick and reminds him, remember last hearing when we talked about Epstein and you visiting Epstein's island? Are you ready to tell the truth now? Watch what happens. Play this clip.
Responses. And so I am going to go back to requests and letters that were not responded to, because you did say at the last hearing with respect to the Epstein affair that you had, quote, nothing to hide. I assume that is still your testimony today. Is that right, Mr. Secretary?
That is right.
So why have you not responded to the letter that Senator Merkley and I sent following up on the last hearing, asking for documents just to be transparent about the situation and answering the questions that we presented in that letter?
The last time we were together, I agreed and answered every question on that topic with this committee. And I answered each and every topic. I have voluntarily agreed in less than 2 weeks to sit and answer questions on this topic, fully whatever questions are asked of me voluntarily in less than 2 weeks with your House colleagues. I would ask you if there are any questions that you want me to answer. Please give them to House colleagues, and I am going to answer them all. But I am here today to testify about the budget, and I look forward to discussing the president's budget with you today. But I am volunteering within 2 weeks to answer any and all questions on this topic.
Well, Mr. Secretary, I'm aware of that. We presented you with questions and requests that from this committee that have not been responded to. So we're going to have to continue to pursue that. We will follow closely what happens in that proceeding. I hope you will provide them with the materials that we hope to secure here as well. And again, the reason I'm asking this question at this hearing is because we didn't get a response to the letter. No response at all to that earlier letter.
Then Howard Lutnick gets cross-examined by Senator Shaheen, who points out how his continued attacks on Canada have backfired badly. Watch how defensive Lutnick gets. Play this clip.
Last year, according to the World Travel and Tourism Council, the United States saw a 5.5% decline in international visitors. We were the only major economy to see any decline. In my home state of New Hampshire, tourism is the second largest industry, both by revenue, and it supports 70,000 jobs. Canada has long been our largest share of foreign visitors, but last year we saw a 30% drop in Canadian tourism, largely due to the loss of trust and goodwill because of this administration's rhetoric around Canada. Secretary Lutnick, last week, you said about Canada's economic strategy, and I quote, "They suck." I believe your spokesperson then said this was about Canada's economy leeching off of the U.S. How does insulting our closest ally and neighbor help the businesses in my state of New Hampshire and states all across this country who are hurting because of the loss of Canadian business and tourism?
Canada's economy leans on the incredible $30 trillion economy of America. But
there's no doubt about that, Mr. Secretary. But insulting our closest ally and neighbor who provides a lot of business, we have a lot of businesses in New Hampshire, small businesses who work on both sides of the border. We have all those Canadian visitors who are not coming because of your comments and comments by the administration. How does that help our economy?
It is outrageous that Canada will not put U.S. spirits on the shelf. It is insulting.
It is.
And disrespectful to America that they won't
Absolutely.
even put.
And my husband has an interest in a company that has American spirits. And they won't do it because of the insults from this president and comments like yours. So I want to go on to another question.
But can I have just one small comment, which is dairy is treated so badly and your state cares about dairy, and we are trying desperately to get them to live to the deal that they have on USMCA and stop treating our dairy farmers so poorly, and your state cares about that, and we are fighting for that.
We do, but we are not going to get agreement when we keep insulting people. When we have allies and partners, we should try and work with them, not insult them. And I find your rhetoric insulting to the people in my state who are working so hard to try and ensure that they can do business.
More of Lutnick getting defensive and dodging Senator Van Hollen's questions about Jeffrey Epstein. Play it.
Last hearing with respect to the Epstein affair, that you had, quote, nothing to hide. I assume that is still your testimony today. Is that right, Mr. Secretary?
That is right.
So why have you not responded to the letter that Senator Merkley and I sent following up on the last hearing, asking for documents just to be transparent about the situation and answering the questions that we presented in that letter?
the last time we were together, I agreed and answered every question on that topic with this committee. And I answered each and every topic. I have voluntarily agreed in less than 2 weeks to sit and answer questions on this topic fully, whatever questions are asked of me voluntarily in less than 2 weeks with your House colleagues. I would ask you if there are any questions that you want me to answer. Please give them to House colleagues, and I am going to answer them all. But I am here today to testify about the budget, and I look forward to discussing the president's budget with you today. But I am volunteering within 2 weeks to answer any and all questions on this topic.
Well, Mr. Secretary, I'm aware of that. We presented you with questions and requests from this committee that have not been responded to. So we're going to have to continue to pursue that. We will follow closely what happens in that proceeding. I hope you will provide them with the materials that we hope to secure here as well. And again, the reason I'm asking this question at this hearing is because we didn't get a response to the letter. No response at all to that earlier letter.
More from Van Hollen cross-examining Treasury Secretary Bessent, essentially asking, are you just bailing out wealthy people? Is this just welfare for the rich? Play this clip.
File was intended to give sort of working people a little bit of relief, and it did save on average $160 and got very good reviews in terms of people's experience with it. It does go to the larger question of the IRS, which has lost 27,000 employees through actions such as RIFs, the Deferred Resignation Program, and early retirement. 27,000 employees left because of those actions, right?
Yes, sir, which there was quite a bit of bloat during the Biden years.
Really?
So we were just getting back to a more normalized level.
So, Mr. Secretary, you had to hire a lot of those people back, right?
We hired some people back in specific areas, not a lot of those, sir.
Yeah. But how much did it cost to both first let people go and then go back and have to rehire a bunch of them?
Again, it was not a bunch of them. And we have made very large gains in technology.
Are you aware of the fact that the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration released a report in January showing how the IRS service delivery has declined because of these changes? Have you seen that?
What I have seen, Senator, is that the Democrats said that the filing system was going to be a disaster. It's been a home run. And what you are nitpicking me on now is the difference between answering a call in 6 minutes and 9 minutes.
Yeah.
And sir, let me tell you the way the calls used to work. That the IRS under the Biden administration would answer the call and a taxpayer in 6 minutes, and a taxpayer would be on hold for 20 or 30 minutes. Now, when the taxpayer's call gets answered, they get serviced right away. So it's a false equivalent.
Mr. Secretary, what you've done is provided a windfall to very wealthy people who don't pay their
Senator,
taxes.
why would I do that? Why would I do that? What is your theory of the case,
because
Senator?
this
What is your theory of the case?
This,
because
Mr. Secretary,
I am committed to collect.
Senator Houston, no, because this
Senator's time has expired. Senator
administration
Houston.
has time after time
Mr.
tilted the
Secretary.
tax code in favor of very wealthy
Senator
people.
Houston.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Profited more from this war than Russia. Oil and gas prices are up nearly 50% since February. And it'd be bad enough if Russia were just profiting from higher global oil prices. But your Treasury Department lifted sanctions on Russian oil, giving them an extra $150 million a day in revenue. And those funds are going not just to kill Ukrainians, but Russia's using its profits to support Iran with drones and intelligence to kill our troops. So, look, to summarize, I find it hard to believe that we are continuing to relieve sanctions pressure on Russia and Iran. I was encouraged when last week you said that the department would not extend the sanctions relief for Russia, yet the next day that was reversed. Can you give me any brief idea why it's a good idea to relieve sanctions on Iranian and Russian oil?
Good. With pleasure, Senator. The $14 billion is a myth and unfortunately a DNC talking point that I've been subjected to many times. If anyone would like to show me where that $14 billion comes from,
I look forward to an exchange of details on that, Mr. Secretary.
We can exchange it in a very public forum.
I'm not the DNC. I'm the senator from Delaware.
Well, I on every talk show and every senator seems to have.
Do you disagree that Iran has received significant additional revenue from their sales of oil because of sanctions relief?
I couldn't disagree more.
Okay. Do you disagree that Russia has received significant additional revenue from the sanctions relief?
I couldn't disagree more.
Okay. Why did you relieve the sanctions against Russian and Iranian oil?
Think of it this way, sir. There's the Strait of Hormuz.
Familiar with it.
There is oil to the
left and to the right.
There is to the right. The Treasury was able to, just as you are concerned about gasoline prices for the American consumer and for our Asian allies, as are we, Treasury was able to create the more than 250 million barrels on the water. And the way to think about this is, as I came in today, the oil prices are at $100. If we had not done that sanctions relief, they might have been at 150 because the world became very well supplied. So if Russia was selling their oil at a 20% discount, I can tell you that 100% of 100 is less than 80% of 150, and the American consumer has been better off.
Well,
we also,
look, the folks in Delaware are buying $4 a gallon gas today. I don't see that we've seen a significant reduction in the price at the pump or the price on the world markets, but I have two more questions I want to get to. And I look forward to disputing with you the details. I believe that Russia and Iran have benefited from the release of sanctions.
Then RFK Jr., who previously testified in the House, appeared before the United States Senate. Senator Hassan raises something very basic: the price of beef. And why does the Trump administration keep lying and claiming prices are going down when they are clearly going up? Play this clip.
Highs under President Trump. Do these high grocery prices make it easier or harder for families to eat fresh, healthy foods?
I would say that beef has dropped by 1% in the last quarter.
I know, look, beef prices are up 20%. Banana prices are up nearly 7% since President Trump took office. Cheese prices are up 6%. So again, when groceries get more expensive, easier or harder for families to afford the very healthy foods that you want them to eat?
Well, there's also, you can eat beef, you can eat poultry, you can eat fish, and the price of beef is dictated by the size of the herd. The herd dropped the lowest.
Look, you're not answering, but obviously if the food is more expensive.
President Trump for something that he didn't do.
Well, let's take a look at this image. Did you post this image in 2024 about grocery prices being too high?
I don't recall.
Well, you did post it. That's your handle up there. And and I agree that grocery prices were too high in 2024. But under President Trump, they have skyrocketed even further. So now let's go to an updated version of this post. Will you post this? The most expensive vehicle.
No, because President Trump actually brought down grocery costs for most of his term. I think there's been a raise recently in the price of everything.
Look, families are facing historic prices at the register. You don't need to be a Secretary of Health and Human Services to know that. You don't need to be a United States Senator to know that. The people in New Hampshire, the people across this country know that because they go to grocery stores today. And the fact that you either don't know it or you don't want to admit it just shows how out of touch you and the Trump administration are. Now let's go to another issue.
Then RFK Jr. started making strange noises. I will just show you. Play it.
Done among the many that you described in your testimony. In that context, in your testimony, you identified nutrition as a bedrock of health and one of the primary levers for treating and preventing chronic disease.
More from Senator Hassan's cross-examination of RFK Jr. Play it.
Here's the thing. When you were running to get the Maha vote, you told people you would stand up to chemical companies. You would take carcinogens out of our agricultural system. You said that you would get these chemicals out of foods. That's what you said you would do to make America healthy again. And yet when push comes to shove and a big corporation, talk about the status quo here. It's Bayer Monsanto or something like that. It's the big company. And when the president of the United States, rather than trying to work to find alternatives, rather than try to get him to limit that executive order, you just stood down instead of standing up. Thank you, Mr.
You
Chairman.
asked what President Trump has done. He's given me $200 million to help get America off of glyphosate.
Well, I would look forward to finding out who is doing the research and the science. And are you working with the
You
EPA
didn't
to
create
do it?
this problem. You guys helped create this problem over the past 30 years.
And you just told the
He's
big
dealing with
corporation that they don't even have liability for it
He
anymore.
is dealing with a national security vulnerability where the Chinese could shut off our food supply in a single day.
So
That's a
before,
good situation.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to yield my time, but I'm just going to say this. You have now been changing your testimony over time
I
about
have
this.
not changed my testimony.
You said earlier you were displeased with this. You tried to talk the president out of it.
I did.
And now you're just fully supportive of a huge corporation
didn't
having no
change my-
liability. Thank you.
I sued that corporation and got $11 billion from them, and it put them on the edge of bankruptcy.
Right. And now you're just folding right in front of them. Thank you.
Senator Tuberville. The question is a simple one. Do you still believe that one of the central tenets of the germ theory that vaccines sharply reduce infant mortality is, quote unquote, simply untrue?
What I was saying in that book, first of all, the study you cited is a modeling study.
It's a what? Sorry?
A modeling study. CDC has actually done a real study that answers that question. It's called GUYER, G-U-Y-E-R 2000. And it says that the 80% mortality in chronic disease that took place, in mortalities from chronic disease that took place in the 20th century, that almost none of it was attributable to vaccination. It was attributable to hygiene, to sewer plants, better water supplies, to engineering that got oranges.
Just a sec, I have to interrupt you because I have other questions. You're entitled to your view.
That's
But
not
that
my
is-
view. That's CDC's view.
Well, you're entitled to CDC's view, but according to the World Health Organization and scientists all over the world, vaccines have played an enormous role in saving lives.
I don't contest that. I'm just saying, if you want to talk about why disease mortalities disappeared in the 20th century, it was not vaccines.
Well, you are in a minority of opinion
I'm
on
just
that.
talking.
All right, I got other questions.
A particularly powerful moment came when Senator Van Hollen cross-examined RFK Jr. Play this clip.
Now, you've had some trouble with the truth. I've seen it myself during your appearances before Congress. And as we all saw clearly during your exchange last week with Congresswoman Sewell, can you admit today that you said every Black kid can get reparented on a wellness farm? Can you admit that you said that?
And get reparented on a wellness.
Well, let me read exactly what you said. You said every Black kid is now just standard, put on Adderall, on SSRIs, benzos, which are known to induce violence. And those kids are going to have a chance to go somewhere and get reparented, to live in a community where there'll be no cell phones, no screens. You know, you claimed, in fact, you went on to say, actually, the whole transcript was even worse. You said that if you could, you would send, quote, every Black kid, again, your words, not mine, to go live on farms and work. Is that your?
I would have to hear that recording because
well, I have the recording.
I have no memory of saying anything like that.
Yeah, well, I actually have the recording that I can give to you, but it is absolutely what you said. And if you want me to play it, I can play it.
But if you ask me what my opinion is, I do not believe that every Black kid should be reparented on a wellness farm or whatever. And I have never believed that.
Well, you said it, sir. I have the video here. In fact,
I'm telling you, I don't believe it. That's not my vision for our country.
Well, I'm glad because it was ignorant to say, it was dangerous, and it was irresponsible.
Well, if I said it, I apologize, but I'd have to see the transcript.
Senator Markey.
Then Senator Patty Murray cross-examines Energy Secretary Chris Wright. Play this clip.
Skyrocketing energy costs because of this administration's policy. The average price of gasoline right now is $4.04. It's higher than that where I live. That is the highest it's been in 4 years. Electricity costs are up 6.9% over the last year. That is more than double the inflation rate. And your budget seeks to straight up eliminate programs that really help people save money. I mentioned it before, the weatherization assistance, state energy programs. Meanwhile, you're asking to spend $7.4 billion on nuclear weapons. You recently said that gas prices may not go below $3 a gallon until sometime next year. President Trump said you're totally wrong. Do you stand by your comment that prices may not go down until next year?
Look, prices have moved down over the last 9 or 10 days. We do everything we can every day to drive down the price of gasoline. They were below $3 a gallon before engagement in solving a 47-year-old problem and in the middle of fixing a sticky problem in the center of energy production in the Middle East. Gasoline prices today are still $1 lower than they were in the middle of the Biden administration, where they weren't fixing any sticky problems. Do we want to see it go lower? Absolutely. Do we work every day to get them lower? Absolutely.
We're a year and a half into the Trump administration. So let me just ask you, will you guarantee that gas will go back to $3 again before the end of the year?
No one can offer guarantees about the future, but of course, everything we're doing to grow the supply of energy and end the Biden administration's war on hydrocarbons, the Biden administration massively drove up energy prices. And you're right, it's taken us some effort to bring them back down, but they're going down.
Now we depend on oil, and here we are.
Senator Hassan then questions RFK Jr. about how difficult it has become for ordinary people to afford groceries. Play it.
Agree with you that all Americans should have access to healthy food. However, President Trump has made it far harder for families to afford their groceries. Last year, the typical family paid hundreds of dollars more than they did the previous year on groceries such as fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, meat, coffee, and dairy. And while a few items such as eggs have gotten cheaper this year, other staples like beef continue to reach historic highs under President Trump. Do these high grocery prices make it easier or harder for families to eat fresh, healthy foods?
I would say that beef has dropped by 1% in the last quarter.
I know, look, beef prices are up 20%. Banana prices are up nearly 7% since President Trump took office. Cheese prices are up 6%. So again, when groceries get more expensive, easier or harder for families to afford the very healthy foods that you want them to eat?
Well, there's also, you can eat beef, you can eat poultry, you can eat fish, and the price of beef is dictated by the size of the herd. The herd dropped.
Look, you're not answering, but obviously, if the food is more expensive,
President Trump for something that he didn't do.
Well, let's take a look at this image. Did you post this image in 2024 about grocery prices being too high?
I don't recall.
Well, you did post it. That's your handle up there. And and I agree that grocery prices were too high in 2024. But under President Trump, they have skyrocketed even further. So now let's go to an updated version of this post. Will you post this? The most expensive vehicle?
No, because President Trump actually brought down grocery costs for most of his term. I think there's been a raise recently in the price of everything.
Look, families are facing historic prices at the register. You don't need to be a Secretary of Health and Human Services to know that. You don't need to be a United States Senator to know that. The people in New Hampshire, the people across this country know that because they go to grocery stores today. And the fact that you either don't know it or you don't want to admit it just shows how out of touch you and the Trump administration are.
Then Senator Tina Smith's cross-examination of RFK Jr. Play this clip.
Is a highly successful, comprehensive strategy to provide birth control and preventative care to low-income women. And we know that every dollar that's invested in Title X, Mr. Chair, saves somewhere between $3 and $7 in Medicaid costs, preventing unintended pregnancies. So, Secretary Kennedy, can you explain why you were recommending zeroing out funding for Title X, which would eliminate screenings for cervical cancer and would almost certainly result in higher unintended pregnancies?
Can I respond to some of your earlier statements?
Please.
First of all, there are no cuts in Medicaid. I keep saying this. Here's what the CBO said. Fiscal year 2025, $668 billion. fiscal year 2036, $981 billion.
Mr.
That's not
Secretary
a cut.
Kennedy,
It's a 47%
$1 trillion
increase.
in cuts, according to the
terms of-
CBO. 7 million people losing their health insurance because of the Trump administration actions. That's not debatable.
There's nobody who is legally enrolled in Medicaid who is losing
That is
coverage.
just not
Nobody.
true.
Nobody.
That is just not true.
It is so.
What was
It's
what is
true.
the what is
How
what
can this
how
be
else
a
would
cut?
how else would you like to respond to my questions about why the administration is cutting preventative care?
We're putting a lot of it is being returned to the states. We're doing a $667 billion block grant to the states for
My
mental health.
counties
and
are
addictive
asking
service.
why the cost shift to their taxpayers is happening at the same
It's the
time that
federal
rural
taxpayer. The
hospitals are
states
going out of business.
The
Secretary
states administer
Kennedy.
the programs better than we do. So we're giving the same money to the states to administer the program.
That is not the way it is working. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
More from Senator Hassan cross-examining RFK Jr. Play this clip.
Look, I have noticed that while HHS has done relatively little promotion of the life-saving measles vaccine that we were all just discussing, you have been doing a lot of your own self-promotion using official government channels and resources. HHS produced a video of you and Kid Rock exercising and drinking milk in a hot tub, I think at his pretend White House. Another official video features a dramatic sequence of you as a shirtless WWE fighter. You also posted a video on government accounts that depicts you as a video game hero. And you've even posted multiple photos of your younger self over time, your face, to say that you alone are the leader taking on big pharma in this administration. Does the president know about this self-promotion campaign that you're carrying out with official
I didn't know.
HS resources?
I didn't know about a number of those videos. We have
They've all come out like in the last 6 weeks, a couple of months.
I just happen to not see them. I have no
All right,
idea. If the
so
president
you don't know how your own team is managing official U.S. Resources and promoting you in the process. Did so the president hasn't authorized you to use HHS resources for these vanity projects?
You know, I was asked the other day by one of the senators about the Kid Rock video, how much it cost the U.S. government, and I asked my team how much it cost, and they said zero. So,
interesting. I mean, you were at Kid Rock's home. Did the president authorize you to use official HHS resources for these vanity projects? That's my question. Have you discussed them with the president? Did he authorize the use of them?
I've never discussed it with the president.
All right. So as far as you know, he hasn't authorized it.
And I will show you this one to demonstrate it was somewhat bipartisan. Senate Health Committee Chair Senator Cassidy called out RFK Jr. in real time for simply making up studies. He fabricated a bunch of fake research on the spot. Play this clip.
He has actually done a real study that answers that question. It's called Guyer, G-U-I-E-R 2000. And it says that the 80% mortality in chronic disease that took place, in mortalities from chronic disease that took place in the 20th century, that almost none of it was attributable to vaccination. It was attributable to hygiene, to sewer plants, to better water supplies, to engineering that got oranges.
So, I have to interrupt you.
What was the CDC paper you said attributed improvements in longevity to sewer treatment, for example, not vaccines? I'm looking for that on ChatGPT, and it says it doesn't exist. So what is that?
It's called Guyer. The lead author is Guyer, G-U-I-E-R. There's another one that came out in 1977 that was required reading in virtually every medical school that says the same thing. And actually,
Who's the author of that one?
That one was called McKinley and McKinley.
McKinley and McKinley. That one is not CDC, according to
That's
ChatGPT.
not. The Guyer is CDC and Johns Hopkins.
Senator Hess. Yes, and just speaking as a doctor, just to close the conversation, thank you for giving Guyer's name. I've looked up the article. The quote is, thus vaccination does not account for the impressive declines in mortality seen in the first half of last century. The reductions in vaccine preventable diseases, however, are impressive. I'll condense. In the early 1920s, there were about 500,000 annual cases before the introduction of the measles vaccine in the 60s. because of vaccines, these deaths have been virtually eliminated. So that's the complete context.
I was talking about mortality, Senator.
That's what they're saying. The deaths have been virtually eliminated. Okay. Again, speaking as a physician, I will say I looked up the McKinley articles. There was 3.5 million cases of measles per year before the vaccine came along, and about 550 deaths. And then the vaccine took those to less than 100 and like 0 deaths. So the efficacy of the Macaulay paper was written before for events before 1950, which is before the vaccine came out. But then the vaccine came out, and that's when cases went from 3.5 million down to near 0, and deaths went to 0 from 550 a year. So a tremendous impact of the vaccination. Senator Brooks.
There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe.